looks big again, or it feels big. Mekong catfish have a hard life in the wild. They got overfished in the Mekong so much that you have no chances to catch a fish there with hook and line and rod. Next thing is that these Mekong catfish feed on very small plants. These plants in the wild are too small to be put on a hook as hook bait. The good thing is here in this type of lake, where the fish get fed, they get used to taking other baits also than very small plants. They also take some pellets there, and with the pellets we can fish as hook bait. Mekong catfish are strange fish. Mekong is a huge river, and they need to have their eggs, once they spawn, to be drifting for 1,000 to 2,000 kilometers downstream the Mekong. So the fish swim upstream and the eggs drift downstream with the current after the spawning. And usually the young fish hatch in the delta of the Mekong in Cambodia. This is where they live as young animals. Once they're mature, so once they can spawn on their own, they move upstream the river for 2,000, 2,500 kilometers to start everything again. I think we're fortunate with this fish. It looks a good-sized fish, or it feels a good-sized fish, but it's not running off too far. So in this case, I don't have to jump in the water and follow it swimming with the rod in the hand, which is always some mess. The good thing, it cools you a little bit down in the heat here and you sweat less. There it comes.
This is an Amazon redtail. I think one of the most beautiful fish in the lake. I got already one of 85 pounds and 35 pounds. I reckon this 45, 50 pounds. It's a beautiful looking fish if you see the colors of the tail. And it's like a snake, you know. They change the skin every once in a while, and when they are changing the skin you cannot catch them. It's very strange. But as soon as they change the skin, they start feeding again. It's a beautiful looking fish. I'll show you the head of the fish and the long beard what they've got to feel everything in the water. It's beautiful. If you hear this, it's unbelievable. It's like a steel, eh?
Yeah, like a tortoiseshell.
Like a tortoiseshell. It's really hard and they're very protective with that. Some stuff on the places where he was hooked. Also the fins. Okay, now slowly I will wait until he starts breathing again. I move always my fish forwards and backwards until the oxygen goes through. And when he gives me the kick with the tail, I know the fish is alright. And the color of the tail is incredible. Okay, my friend. Let's see what you do. Here's going. Yes. 16 fish in total now. Unbelievable. What a week. Thanks very much, Lee.
No worries, mate. I've got more understanding for people who travel all around the world like I do, but then for different species. Because the fight is different, you have to learn much more. And I think also when you go to this kind of lakes, you learn more for your Europe fishing. You try different things, and yeah, some things are good, some things are bad. But for 100% sure, I'm coming back to this lake and see how it goes here, because I never fished in such a paradise and such a surroundings. If you see, everything is green around me, and especially in December when in Europe it's getting cold, it's fantastic to be abroad.
We're at the Krabi Marine Research Center, where they take care about rare marine species. The problem here is that the sea off Phuket has been somewhat overfished in the past decades, and these guys here are trying to do the best they can to save what can be saved. And what we live now is the feeding of the groupers, the skates, the raised, the shark, and we'll see what will happen. This is a big stingray. This ray knows exactly that this is about the time where it will get food, and the ray is waiting for its food. Still hungry, the ray. Now I'll feed it again. Try to get my hand below it. Here. It's inside. Now I find the mouth. Ah, come on! Must be careful not to get bitten, because they have teeth. Missed it. Below me is a big quantity of huge groupers. These fish usually hide along reefs and caves there, and they are very sedentary fish, and the monsters here grow up to 200 kilos. It's a pity, because worldwide these fishing are becoming more and more rare. They're being often poached, harpooned, spearfished for. They're good to eat, and this is a big problem for them. But now we not eat them, we feed them. This was no grouper. Now we're at the pond with the shark. Many species of shark, but also cobia and moray eels swim around here, and they're waiting for their food to come. The problem for all these marine turtles is they end up in nets, and a lot of them eat plastic bags that drift in the sea. They confuse them with food. Many of these turtles eat jellyfish, And the plastic bag floating resembles a lot. But they're beautiful animals.
The lake is 9 acres. We're 8 metres at one end, 7 metres at the opposite end, and we go around to 4 metres in a bay around the corner to give the fish a big variation of depths. There's about 3,000 fish here. Average size is say 50 pound. So without a calculator, how many tons is that? But it's heavily stocked, very heavily stocked. They're worked out into levels of fish. You know, you have bottom feeders, you have mid-water fish, you have upper water fish. Where we got the depth of water, you know, we can do different depth bands of fish. If we were single species lake, we would have to reduce that number by probably 70%. I don't like the word expert because I've learned a lot about arapaima. I've still got an awful lot to learn. The wild arapaima fascinate me. I don't know much about them. You know, I know arapaima in captivity. It was just a case, I mean, I've done autopsies on fish that have died to see why they died. You know, in the early days, if you lifted an arapaima, you bent their back. You do this in a landing net or handling. If you bend their back upwards or downwards, they've got a huge blood vessel that this is why they breathe air, it filters their blood. We were noticing fish that were dead when we did an autopsy on them, their bodies full of blood. These are fish that have been lifted, you broke a blood vessel and they bled to death.
There are many techniques that would work. The problem that Stuart has is if he allows all techniques possible, his lake will soon not be working anymore because the fish will be dead. This means, and Stuart must be very careful what techniques he allows, because if fish swallow the hooks, he will lose these fish. So this is why almost only one rig is allowed here. This is a bolt rig, like from what is known from the carp fishermen, where the fish hooks himself only in the front part of the mouth, and he can't swallow because the hook length is very short. With circle hooks, Stuart authorizes a longer hook length. Then you can fish with a hook length of 0.5 meter to 1 meter, because these hooks only take grip in the corner of the mouth. So also there the fish are not being harmed. So the fishing techniques are very restricted. What is also possible is to do some fly fishing, which is magic for the arapaimas, and some fly fishing and spin fishing in a smaller lake that he has got aside this big lake with several species up to 20 pounds, but they're species mongering like Goliath tigerfish or tarpon, which you wouldn't expect here because tarpon doesn't even exist in the Pacific. It comes from the Atlantic and it's a sea fish, but it holds very well in fresh water. So he has also peacock bass there and so many more. It's amazing.
Robbie, I've got a giant stingray on. It's unbelievable. He has to dive in the water to get the stingray going. It's unbelievable. The strongest fish ever.
If you sit there, it's okay. Don't put too much pressure. Okay, you hold tight now. Okay, if he starts moving.
It's impossible, guys. It's impossible.
Okay. The stingray will sit on the bottom of the suction against it. So what we're trying to do, as soon as we get him moving, it's easier for us to land him once he's on the move. And once they sit, it's like a dead weight. It could be the worst snag in the world.
Sean, I never felt this before, mate.
When seeing the website of Stuart, very well made website and very complete, I discovered that apparently the fly fishing for arapaima is working good here. And this attracted me personally to this lake. As I told before, I have been to Thailand 12 years ago several times and discovered these fisheries, but not with the fly rod. And I really wanted to give these fish a try with the fly rod, and I did it, and it worked out. I had now, I think, about 6 or 7 arapaimas, the biggest ones 250 and 290 pounds. Huge fish, but the great thing about these fish is they take surface lures. These arapaimas are farmed fish. They got used to be fed with pellets and dead fish, so they are not really hunting. But in the fish farms where they are, it's full of frogs. And these frogs often jump in the water, and the arapaima took them as prey and have been feeding also on these frogs. So even though they're not so much hunting small fish, they like to hunt frogs. And whenever you present a surface lure, you have a very good chance. And the takes are absolutely spectacular. But first of all, as I said, the take is magnificent. It splashes, water explodes, and the lure gets sucked in. It inhales the lure more or less with a lot of water. And well, the chances to strike the fish, I would say, you need 4 or 5 takes to have one fish hanging on the hook, but the one that is hanging on the hook will give you a big fight. It's running off, swimming through all the water hyacinths that are here in the water, and occasionally even jumping. And this makes it fabulous because it's, at my knowledge, the biggest freshwater fish that you can catch with a fly rod, and so the fight is a real big one. There is no particular strategy, it's just you play them like you play big fish, whether it is a big trout on light tackle or this fish on the very heavy tackle we use. It's always the same. As we use barbless hooks, it's very important never to give slack line to the fish. Always keep the fish under pressure. And the runs of these fish may do, well, they make 50, 60 meters in one row, maybe 70, 80 occasionally. And there, of course, it would be stupid to block your reel, otherwise the line will snap immediately. You have no chance of stopping these fish. So you make their run a little bit difficult by putting tension on the fish, but you'd still let line go. This is very important, otherwise your line would break or even the rod would break. We've been using 2 types of lures. Streamers that work under the surface and surface lures, poppers on the surface. With the streamers it's important not to move too much the lure, to work it very, very slowly. And with the poppers it's important to make some noise, like a frog jumping in the water. What doesn't make too much sense is fishing the water blind. This means you just stand somewhere and you cast and cast and cast. Of course, this can produce an occasional fish. But the best strategy is to observe the water, to see where the arapaimas are rolling and swimming, and to see them swimming just below the water surface, and to present your lure right in front of the head. Best is 20 centimeters, not more. And the funny thing is, these fish don't take immediately. You can have an immediate take, but often I had to cast 10 times on the head of certain fish that I spotted before I had the take. With pike it would be different. With pike, the first 1 or 2 casts are the best ones. Later, the pike might stand there, but he will not be taking, and 10 casts later he will run off. With the arapaimas it's not the same.